Hi, everybody. This is your coach, J.DP, and you are excellent. Today, we're in session with someone that I really respect and admire. She is a best-selling author, and she is joining us today right on the tails of an international book tour. We have a lot to talk about. So I want to introduce you all to the Latina Madrina herself, Julissa Germosén, is here with us today on In Session. So, Julissa, thank you so much for being here.
It's so good to be with you, JDP, my bud, my hermano. It's going to be a fun time.
Gracias. And I know that we're a couple of days late for Hispanic Heritage Month, but you know what? Every month is Hispanic Heritage Month, girl.
Exactly. We're celebrating all the time. So
it's all the time.
So bring excellence.
And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because you are doing so much in terms of poniendo la raza pa'lante, right? Putting Latinos ahead.
Yeah.
But first things first, Julissa, for those in my audience who don't know you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, Julissa Germosén, I am Dominicana. I am an immigrant, a very proud immigrant. And I have spent over 20 years in the tech industry, and that's been my career across, multiple sort of, disciplines, sales, go-to-market strategy, operations, alliances, etc. And worked at Microsoft with the Salesforce tech startups. And I've written a book about, just some of my experiences. And it's not a memoir. It's really a book that I call, Latina Madrina, because I always wanted someone who looked like me in my career. I always wanted my own madrina. So I wrote a book about, again, not a memoir, but just lessons, things that I've learned, things that I think I want to document so that I can share with other Latinas, other Latina leaders, aspiring leaders, those that don't want to be leaders, right? And how to really advance yourself, your life, your career in a environment that was not necessarily built for us. Yeah. So it's been just an incredible whirlwind. It's been about a month and a couple of days now. Let me see. Yep, a month and 5 days. So it's been incredible. And like you said, I just came back from a European, book tour, and it's unbelievable to me how the messaging in the book, which is really, about representation in tech and in business, empowerment, belonging, community, not feeling alone and isolated, advocating for yourself, all those things, well-being, right? It's not just about career. Like, we're humans, we're people. It's not just about career, it's about life. It's resonated with so many people, even people not from marginalized communities. So it's just, it's been a lot of fun. So much fun.
I got from your book, and I have it here for those of you. I have it on my Amazon Kindle, but it's available in paper form as well. So I exhort you to go out and buy it. The link will be in the description below. Julissa, when I read your origin story, you start off with your values, right? And the values that were passed on to you from your parents. Could you tell our audience a little bit about that? Because for me, in my experience, again, Puerto Riqueño, from very humble beginnings with working class mom and single mom, 5 kids, and how she instilled the values of hard work, education, and the value of the chancla. Because you got to keep these kids in line. So I'm just wondering if you could, but anyway, what you wrote resonated with me. I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about that.
We're like unusual Dominicans, in many ways. We were very quiet. Like, my parents went to bed early because they got up early to go to work. They worked in warehouses and in factories, all of their lives. My mom and my stepfather, who I call dad, papi, my father, he owned bodegas. He owned, liquor stores in New York and in Brooklyn and in Manhattan. And it was very much like you come to this country, you work hard, they're leaving home, they're leaving, what they know, and they're starting, anew. And so that's what I saw my whole life. I mean, my mom worked as a seamstress when she came here. She was raised to be a homemaker. She was to be, oldest oldest girl of 11 kids. She was raised to take care of the children and to cook, to clean, to marry, and to take care of a home and, and family, and like starting anew, working here with, two little kids and papi, and so it's like she worked as a seamstress up until she gave birth to me, like that kind of, work and working for the future and laying the groundwork for your family. So I internalized all of that, all of these examples that I saw. And the thing about my mom too, that I just really honor and appreciate about her, is that my mom was really, she was a super saver, and she had dreams and goals. Like she was like, we're buying a house, we're gonna, like seamstress salary after, she supported, she divorced my dad and remarried, we're gonna buy a home, and so like, honestly, just really unbelievable to see, this. And it wasn't always easy. Like it's not easy, in many ways, but those values and those, that work ethic, from both, honestly, like my grandfather, grandmother, parents, stepfather, like that's what I saw. That's the example that I saw. Again, not perfect people, right? It's not like, we're not, but I saw that they really were working towards something, bigger than themselves, which was us, the kids. So I'm very thankful for that foundation that I got to, grow from.
It's really cool that you talk about your dad, your papi, right? And for those of you who don't know, papi, dad in Spanish for most Hispanics is papi.
Yeah.
So
Father is like so much more
not
papa, like formal.
right.
Papi is, daddy, dad.
It's like when I'm a girl dad. I have 3 girls, right? So when my eldest was small, and she was in preschool and whatnot, and all of her friends would call their dads dad, and she'd come home and said, "Dad." I was like, yo soy papi. I'm not dad. And I
Yeah.
said, and she's like, "Why?" I was like, "Everybody has a dad, but very few have a papi."
Yeah, that's good. That is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really good. My father was not necessarily like, I think like you. I think we've evolved as men and fathers. My father was very strict. He was military.
Mm.
He was a man of honor and de así, ¿verdad? And so like very, and so it was more like I respected my dad. It was more like it was, like revered, almost feared. Like, you always had to stand up a little straighter when my father, when Bobby was around. So it wasn't like this, like, ay, mi niñita. None of that, like my stepfather was more like soft and kind of, very humble and all of that. But, Papi was like the man, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think what you're referring to in the book is that like my Papi would always say, my kids will be lawyers, like with this voice. All of my kids will be lawyers
Todos mis hijos van a ser abogados.
and like he just would say it in like this deep Dominican accent that like demanded it to, like he willed it to life. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. All of us were like, yeah, that sounds great to me. And then I had to sort of, I was pre-law in undergrad and quickly, after I got my degree and applying to law school and all of that, I was like, I really loved my education, but I don't think this is for me. So I've got to figure out, my path. And that's when, I think I was really led, divine intervention into, sales and tech and Microsoft and all of this. And I really, it's not something that was on my radar, but it was something that was happening. I was like, this is going to be big. It's kind of like, AI now, right? Ooh, this is good. Let's ride this wave. I don't know what is happening, but we need to learn this and we need to be a part of it. That's kind of
Mm.
was for me when I decided, law's not for me. Now I've got to figure out what. And, I went to my trusted advisors, my mentors, my roommate who had did a great job. Like she was, in corporate and blah, blah, blah. My advisors at my church and things like that. And that's sort of what led me into tech. And yeah.
Yeah, you talk about your roommate, and you were saying in the book that you were kind of I think she was ahead of you, maybe a year or two in school,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and you talked, and you were looking kind of like looking at her, and here you are in this environment, right, coming from New York to the university system,
Yeah. Well, New
and was
Jersey.
I'm sorry.
I lived in New Jersey at the time. So yeah, when I didn't include this in the book. So yeah, maybe a little, but we lived in New York and then we moved to New Jersey
New Jersey,
when
right?
my parents when my mom remarried my stepfather. Yeah.
So what was that for you? Was there any cultural adaptation that you had to do from family life, right? New York, New Jersey, and now you're in the university. What was the point at which you kind of said, this is interesting. Am I stepping into a new world, or was there anything like that for you?
Yes, definitely. Well, I moved when I was 10. So there was definitely very, very much a difference from living in Brooklyn to living in, the suburbs. Even though it was a Hispanic community here in New Jersey,
Sure.
it was very much the suburbs. I mean, there were a lot of trees, right? I had my own room. We had a backyard. It's the suburbs, even,
Hey, you made it.
you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is great. So yes, there was a lot of, it was very, very interesting. But you mentioned, Tara, and yeah, she was a year or two older than me. She, is white. She's still alive. So she is, white, upper middle class, wealthy family. Like,
Right.
I'm kind of like teens, early 20s. I'm like, okay, there's more going on here, right? And so I would hear her talk on the phone, on business calls. I'm like, look at this woman. Like, this is super cool. So she really played a pivotal role in kind of, saying, hey, you're great with people. You should go into sales.
Mm.
Do it, And so that's kind of how it
So
all.
would you consider that like most pivot points come at the tail end of trauma, of maybe a big decision, maybe some angst, or maybe resistance of change that all of a sudden precipitates a breakthrough? Was
Yeah.
there anything like that for you, or was it that easy where she's like, you should go into sales, you're awesome with people, and you're coupled with your dissatisfaction with law school? Or, was that kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll try anything, I'll try this, or was it a little bit more intentional?
I I do. So what I did was, spoke to a lot of people and
Mm.
I did kind of like, what's the next step? And remember, this is like in the 90s where there was a lot of economic turmoil at the time. People were
Mm.
graduating from college and they couldn't find a job. It's kind of like, honestly, like what's happening now, right? With what's happening with the economy. So I asked, it wasn't simple, but it was a path. It was a direction. And I knew that, I always thought this, like, let's just try it. And then you can always pivot. So I was always willing to try something. And to me, it sounded right. The other thing that was important for me was I was very much averse of taking roles where someone said, this is your salary and that is it, because I wanted to make money. So sales sounded right. Me being, you're great with people, even, I think the reason my parents, Bobby and mom was like, you'd be a great lawyer is because I was always talking. I was always, kind of like, you know what I mean? So very extroverted. So sort of putting all those things together and getting the thoughts from everyone, kind of put me in a direction. And, our work ethic, we're hard workers. So,
Yeah.
the more you hustled, sold, talked to people, it's a numbers game. And I did really well. And, my first sales gig was at Rico Copiers, where I was, selling more than like people twice my age who had families to support. And so work ethic and
Yeah.
like,
So you went from the university setting, right? You kind of said, okay, let me try this sales path. Here you are at Rico, right? And you're this bright-eyed Latina, probably don't know any better than to hustle. And there you are, right? What was that environment even like? Because in the book you kind of talk a little about it, but I'm just wondering if you could tell the audience a little bit about that first job experience over there.
yes. So, it is an all white,
Mm.
all male, uh, high stakes, very low, like basically all commission sales organization. It
I think
was,
you said you kill what you eat what you kill.
you eat what you kill. It is cutthroat. We got a $200 a week, basically stipend, and that does not cover anything. That doesn't cover the rent. That doesn't cover a thing. And it was really tough, but I learned a lot of hard truths. And the great thing is that my boss and his boss were willing to teach me, and I was willing to learn. Like I just learned. I just soaked things up. And then I found a really great mentor as well in the organization, someone that later became, by my boss, who I consider, you know, also a good human. Do you know what I mean? Like you can learn
Yeah.
from people that are incredibly cutthroat, but it's like, don't waste my time. You're just a number for me, but I'm still learning from them. So it was tough. I learned a lot of lessons about being a woman in that environment. It's the first time that I actually was harassed and
Oh,
I reported. So things like that were prevalent. I mean, I won't say prevalent. I'll say that, it happened. And but my leaders had my back, so I'm really glad for that.
so here we are, for folks who are looking at you today, probably will go out and get the book, probably hopefully check you out on your socials and follow
Yeah.
you, which I highly recommend, by the way. All of her socials are down in the description. Flash forward through your career, right? Because again, we touch on a lot of big tech companies, Microsoft and a bunch of Salesforce, right? These are like, this is no joke.
Yeah.
And you're navigating these environments now across from the 90s and the early 2000s, right? From early career to now.
Mhm.
And I think we met back in, I think, 2017, something
No.
like that.
Well, let me think. It
Yeah,
was
it might have been.
2015,
No, yeah, I started at Salesforce in 16. So I
16.
think,
Okay, 16.
yeah. So it
Okay.
might be somewhere in there. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's besides the point.
you're right. You have a good memory.
So, mm. But when you talk in the book about being the only or one of the few, and even when you get to that rarefied air of one of the few in these senior leadership positions now,
Yeah.
right? What's that experience like, and what's going through your mind? How did you function?
I think I function quite well, but I think what's interesting is that oftentimes, like, I don't think about, being a woman or an owner,
Mm,
or I was just thinking about my job. I was thinking about what do I need to do to get things done, to execute, to lead a team, like the job at hand, the role at hand. So even though I was, it was always the times that I was like, um, that I was sort of, and I talk about this like the othering, right? When someone would say something to remind me that I am not like everyone else. Those were the moments that were challenging, for me. Those were the moments that I thought I don't know if I always did the best job of, advocating for myself or
mm.
always knew how to handle that. But those were the times that I wished that I would have had a madrina, to talk through, because obviously, you have mentors, you have coaches, but when you're in this level, because, like there's so few Latinas in leadership roles, right? And there's just so few of us in tech in general, to kind of talk through these issues. Like, how do you deal with that? And also not just that, but just like other things in the job and in the role that you need to, just need to work through. So I honestly didn't think that much about it because it was so common. But there were moments that I was like, gosh, I wish I had someone that looked like me because, and this because you're an executive coach, sometimes the advice given by coaches, if they're not familiar with the cultural context and your background, some of the input, advice, and guidance, it's going to backfire because it was really meant for, say, a white male or a white female. It's just, there's a bit more nuance. And so this is why I absolutely advocate for, if you're looking for a coach and a mentor, you're going to have people that don't look like you. And that's going to be normal. A mentor or a sponsor, normal. When it comes to coaches, it really is valuable to have someone that understands the cultural context of your background so that they can help you navigate, in these spaces in corporate and in tech. I really believe in that.
The concept then that we're touching on, and I would love to dive into it a little bit, is the Latina Madrina, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us about the genesis of the Latina Madrina.
Yeah. So when I was writing this book, I have mentees, and I was really writing this book with them in mind. As I was writing, I was thinking about them. And I really thought about, these are people that I care about, right? And I wanted to write and offer guidance because I care. It's not just about giving advice or sharing lessons. It's like, I care about you as a full human being. And I wanted that to come across when I wrote it. Like a madrina. Like a madrina is someone who cares about you, loves you, appointed by your parents. They offer guidance, spiritual guidance. They're going to also tell you like the hard truths. And so I was like, I'm not going to gatekeep or sugarcoat. And because oftentimes I felt alone in my career, even though like I had amazing colleagues and friends like you and others and ERGs, like it's not like we don't have people, but sometimes you just feel like, gosh, I wish I had someone like a madrina for my career. So that was just, and for people who are not from, Hispanic background, Latin American, background, a madrina is a godmother. And so, it's this concept. And I thought, oh, I like this. Like, I like this idea because it's not just a book about giving advice or me giving advice. It's like, I want people to feel like I'm their madrina when they read it. And what's been incredible is that people like will slide into my DMs, madrina, hey, this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they trust me. Like they're saying that because they've read the book and they trust me. So that's.
Well, everybody, the book is called Latina Madrina by our guest, Julissa Germosén. I highly recommend the read. It is phenomenal. It's relatable. I felt honestly that through your experience, I was actually reliving parts of my own. And so, Madrina, thank you. But before we go, and I know, and I just want to first and foremost say thank you very much for being here with us today. Do you have any? We're living in some crazy times, right? So do you have any advice or any words of wisdom you can pass on to my viewers?
Yes. I think there's so many things that I can share, but I think the biggest thing that I just want to share is no matter what, bet on you. Like invest in you, bet on you, whatever you want to do, get help, but like bet on you. What are the things that you want to do and be super clear about that and then invest in you. That would love to leave your viewers.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julissa, very much. Guys, all of Julissa's socials and bio and the book, direct link to the book, it will be in the description. I highly recommend that you guys It's a good read. It's a relatable read. And those of you, even if you're not Hispanic, read the book. This is what we call reverse mentoring. This is you understanding someone that you might not necessarily have the occasion to interact with on a daily basis, or in a sort of an intimate setting. So it's a very personal read. It's a fun read. Julissa has a great sense of humor. Some of this stuff in there is hysterical. But please do that. Julissa, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, J.D.P. Thank you so much.
Guys, we have been in session with Julissa Germosén. And again, this is your coach, J.D.P., reminding you always, you are excellent. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.